The phone would not stop buzzing. Madelyn Thompson stared at the screen in her sleek Seattle apartment, her heart pounding as the notification count climbed into the hundreds. An old video from 10 years ago had gone viral overnight, and the comments were a storm of judgment and pity. Is this the same Madelyn who pretended it was all a joke? How could she deny her best friend like that? It was the night that changed everything. The night Savannah had walked down the stairs in that white wedding dress, smiling like the world was theirs. Madelyn's hands shook as she clicked play, the past rushing back in vivid color. 10 years earlier, the birthday party at the Harrington family home in Bend, Oregon, was supposed to be a celebration of Savannah's 18th birthday. The two had grown up like sisters, inseparable since kindergarten when Madelyn's family moved next door. They shared secrets, clothes, and dreams under the pine trees of their quiet suburban neighborhood. Everyone called them the dynamic duo, the girls who finished each other's sentences. But on that warm summer evening in 2014, Savannah had something bigger planned. The guests were milling around the backyard with punch and cake when the music stopped and all eyes turned to the grand staircase inside the house. Savannah appeared at the top, radiant in a flowing white wedding dress she must have borrowed from her aunt's attic, her blonde hair cascading in soft waves, a bouquet of wildflowers in her hands. Gasps rippled through the crowd as she descended slowly, her blue eyes locked on Madelyn standing near the punch bowl in her simple jeans and top. "Everyone, I have an announcement," Savannah said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Tonight, on my 18th birthday, I want to declare that I will marry the only girl I love. Madelyn, my best friend, my everything. You are the one I've always loved, and I want to spend my life with you." The room exploded in shocked silence, then murmurs. Madelyn's parents, strict conservative Christians who had raised her with traditional values, froze in place. Her father's face turned red. Her mother clutched her pearls. Madelyn felt the world tilt. She had known deep down that her feelings for Savannah went beyond friendship, but the pressure from her family, the church, the small-town whispers about those two being too close, had always kept her silent. "Savannah, what are you doing?" Madelyn whispered, but it was too late. Her father pulled her aside into the kitchen, his voice low and urgent. "Madelyn, this is not happening. We did not raise you to be like this. Think of your future, your reputation, the family name. Tell everyone it's a prank, a stupid joke between girls. Do it now or you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Tears stung Madelyn's eyes, but the fear of disappointing them, of being cast out, won. She stepped back into the living room, forcing a laugh. "Guys, it's just a joke. Savannah and I are like sisters. That's all. No wedding, no nothing. Sorry for the scare." Savannah's face crumpled, the bouquet dropping to the floor. "Madelyn, how could you?" She ran upstairs, the dress trailing behind her like a broken promise. The party ended in awkward goodbyes, and by morning, Savannah had packed a bag and left for college on the East Coast without a word. Madelyn tried to call, but the line went to voicemail every time. The denial had been swift, but the wound it left was deep, festering in silence for a decade. Back in the present, Madelyn closed the video, her chest tight. She was now 28, married to a man named David for 5 years, working as a marketing executive in Seattle. But the marriage was a facade, filled with empty conversations in separate bedrooms. The viral video was bringing it all back, and soon her phone rang with her mother's number. "Madelyn, what is this? Everyone at church is talking. You need to come home and explain yourself. This can't ruin our family again." The confrontations were just beginning. Madelyn knew she had to face Savannah, who had become a successful artist in New York, but the guilt was already consuming her. Little did she know, the exposure was only the start of a chain reaction that would force her to confront every layer of her past. She grabbed her keys, the drive back to Bend stretching ahead like a sentence she had postponed for 10 years. The road blurred with memories she had tried to bury. By the time Madelyn pulled into her parents' driveway the next morning, the entire town seemed to know. Neighbors waved awkwardly from their porches, their eyes full of questions. Her mother met her at the door, arms crossed, the same disappointed look she had worn that night a decade ago. "How could you let this happen again?" she hissed before Madelyn even stepped inside. The living room smelled of coffee and judgment. Her father sat in his recliner, Bible open on his lap like a shield. "We protected you from this lifestyle," he said quietly. And now the whole world sees our shame. Madelyn sank onto the couch, the same couch where she had once sat with Savannah after school, laughing over homework. Flashbacks hit her in waves. She remembered the summer they were 16, lying on a blanket by the river, Savannah's hand brushing hers and neither pulling away. The spark had been there, quiet and terrifying. But every Sunday sermon about sin, every family dinner lecture about God's plan for marriage, had drilled the fear deeper. When Savannah left after the party, Madelyn had thrown herself into the role her parents wanted. Dating boys from church, smiling through youth group events, pretending the ache in her chest was just nostalgia. David had seemed safe, kind, steady, approved by everyone. Their wedding 3 years after college had been perfect on paper, but Madelyn had cried in the bathroom stall before walking down the aisle, thinking only of Savannah's devastated face. Now the video had ripped the lid off everything. Comments flooded in from old classmates. I always knew they were more than friends. Even Savannah's mother had texted Madelyn that morning. She saw it. She's hurting all over again. Madelyn drove to the old park where they used to meet, sitting on the swing set as rain began to fall. Her phone lit up with a New York number she had not dialed in years. Savannah's voice was colder than she remembered. Why now, Madelyn? Why let that video surface after I finally moved on? Madelyn could only whisper, I never stopped thinking about you. The line went dead. The first confrontation had been over the phone, but Madelyn knew more were coming. She booked a flight to New York for the weekend, the guilt pushing her forward even as fear clawed at her stomach. Back home that evening, her younger sister Emily cornered her in the kitchen. You ruined everything for her, you know? She was in love with you, and you threw her away like trash. The words stung because they were true. Madelyn lay awake that night replaying every moment she had chosen safety over truth. The past and present twisted together like the storm outside, and she realized the redemption she craved would not come without more pain. The flight to New York felt like stepping into a time machine. Madelyn landed at JFK with nothing but a carry-on and the weight of 10 years of silence. Savannah's gallery show was opening that night in Soho, and Madelyn had bought a ticket under a false name just to see her. The gallery was bright and modern, full of abstract paintings that somehow all reminded Madelyn of the river they once shared. Savannah stood in the center of the room, confident in a black blazer, her hair shorter now, but the same blue eyes that had looked at Madelyn with so much hope that birthday night. When their eyes met across the crowd, Savannah's smile faltered. She excused herself from a group of buyers and walked straight to Madelyn. You have some nerve showing up here. Her voice was low, controlled, but Madelyn heard the tremor underneath. They stepped outside into the cool evening air. I spent years trying to forget you, Savannah said. Therapy, new cities, new people. And then that video pops up and everyone wants to know why I proposed to my best friend in a wedding dress only to get publicly rejected. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Madelyn's throat tightened. She told Savannah about the kitchen confrontation with her father, the threats of being cut off, the church elders who had called her the next day. I was terrified, she admitted. I loved you too, Savannah. I still do. But I chose fear instead of us. Savannah laughed bitterly. Love? You called it a joke in front of everyone I cared about. My own parents stopped speaking to me for months because they thought I was delusional. The argument escalated on the sidewalk, passers-by glancing curiously. Savannah finally walked away, but not before saying, if you really want redemption, stop hiding behind your perfect marriage and face what you broke. Madelyn spent the night in a cheap hotel, scrolling through old photos she had kept hidden on a secret folder in her phone. The next morning she called David and told him the truth for the first time. The conversation ended with him asking for a divorce. The news spread fast. Her mother left 3 voicemails demanding she come home immediately. But Madelyn stayed in New York another day, showing up at Savannah's apartment unannounced. The second confrontation was quieter, tears instead of anger, but the pain was just as raw. Savannah let her in, and for the first time in a decade they sat across from each other without lies between them. The days blurred into a painful dance of honesty and hesitation. Savannah showed Madelyn her latest painting series. Dark canvases with white dresses torn at the seams. Every piece is about that night, she said softly. Madelyn traced the brushstrokes, feeling the accusation in every stroke. They walked through Central Park, the fall leaves crunching under their boots, and the conversation turned to the years apart. Savannah had dated women openly in college, built a career, but trust had never come easy. Madelyn confessed the nights she had lain awake next to David wondering what life would have looked like if she had been brave. Back in Bend the following week, the town's judgment reached new heights. The church held a special prayer meeting for the Thompson family. Madelyn's father stood at the pulpit and asked the congregation to pray for his daughter's soul. Emily texted her the details, adding, "They're treating you like a sinner who needs saving." Madelyn drove to the church after dark and stood outside listening to the hymns, tears freezing on her cheeks. The next morning she confronted her parents at breakfast. "I'm done pretending," she said. "I loved Savannah then and I love her now. If that means you can't accept me, I'll learn to live with it." Her mother cried. Her father simply shook his head and left the room. The family fracture was complete. Savannah flew out the next weekend at Madelyn's invitation. The two women met at the river spot of their youth, the same blanket spread on the grass. This confrontation was the hardest. Savannah laid out every letter she had written but never sent, every birthday she had spent alone. Madelyn listened, absorbing the full weight of the damage she had caused. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," Savannah whispered. "But I'm tired of carrying this hate." They sat in silence as the sun set, the past and present colliding once more. Madelyn realized redemption was not a single moment but 1,000 small choices to stay and listen. Word spread that Savannah was back in town. Old classmates reached out, some supportive, many curious or cruel. Madelyn's workplace in Seattle started receiving anonymous emails questioning her lifestyle. She resigned before they could fire her, choosing dignity over the paycheck. David served divorce papers but surprisingly added a note. "I always knew something was missing. Be happy, Madelyn." The unexpected kindness broke something inside her. She packed her Seattle apartment and moved back to Bend temporarily, renting a small house near the river. The chain of confrontations continued at the annual town festival. Savannah had agreed to display her art at a local booth. When Madelyn arrived, a group of church ladies surrounded her, asking pointed questions about the video. Savannah stepped in, voice steady. "This is between us. Leave her alone." The public defense was the first crack in Savannah's armor. Later that night they sat on Madelyn's porch, sharing wine and memories. Flashbacks mixed with the present. The time they had snuck out to see fireworks at 16, the secret notes passed in class, the way Savannah had looked at her the night of the birthday party. Madelyn started therapy in a nearby city, unpacking years of internalized shame. The sessions were brutal, forcing her to admit how she had internalized her parents' beliefs until they became her own cage. Savannah attended one session with her, and the counselor guided them through the original wound. "You both lost something precious," the therapist said. "Healing requires owning the pain without letting it define you." The work was slow, filled with arguments and long silences, but Madelyn felt the guilt loosening its grip for the first time. Months passed in a rhythm of tentative steps forward. Savannah extended her stay, renting a studio in town. They rebuilt slowly. Coffee dates that turned into dinners, walks that turned into hand-holding. Madelyn's parents eventually invited them both to Sunday dinner, an awkward but honest meal where her father admitted, "I was wrong to make you choose fear over love." The apology was small, but it mattered. The community's gossip faded as people saw two women living openly and kindly. One crisp autumn evening, Madelyn led Savannah back to the same staircase in the Harrington house, now empty since Savannah's parents had moved. She wore a simple white dress this time. "10 years ago you asked me a question in front of everyone," Madelyn said, voice trembling. "Tonight I'm answering it the way I should have then. Yes, Savannah. I will marry you if you'll still have me." Savannah's tears were different this time, happy instead of broken. They kissed under the same chandelier, the past finally releasing its hold. The journey had been messy, full of confrontations and tears, but it had led them here. Madelyn looked at the woman she had once denied and felt whole for the first time. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Madelyn turned to Savannah and smiled. The future stretched ahead, no longer haunted by what-ifs. True or false? Denying your true love to please your family can ever be the right choice in the end?